Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse Witch, and this time around I am going to be reviewing Spellcraft and Spellwork, a guide to the magical practice of spells by none other than Ari, the Oak Witch. I am very excited about this. Once she told everyone that she's going to release a book, I got very excited. I knew I wanted to read it, so we will be reviewing it today. A little bit of a disclaimer though, it is currently so fucking dark that there is literally no light, no natural light in this apartment, so I have to film with overhead lighting because I kind of was too lazy to put up softboxes. Well, the lighting is kind of strange, a little bit weird, but it will be okay. Let's dive into the review, shall we? So first of all, the first thing you probably notice if you pick up this book is that it is quite slim. That is because it is by Pagan Portals, and they usually make like these smaller volume books on like very specific topics. So this one is, well, as the title says, about spellcraft. So it kind of guides a beginner through all that they have to know to be able to write and cast their own spells, which is great. So if you're looking for a book that is specifically about that, and I know that a lot of you are, because a lot of you ask me, how do you write your spells? How do you cast your spells? So if you want to know any of that, then this book will be for you. Pagan Portals also make other kinds of books about niche topics. I think I also, for example, have a book by Pagan Portals that is only about Thor. So literally only about Thor, nobody else. So usually smaller books, but less fluff and about very specific topics. So that way you don't have to buy like a 101 witchcraft book that has like 50% fluff, 20% of what you actually want to read, and then 30% of other stuff that you aren't really interested in, which I personally think is great. The first thing I realized I really like about this book is that it goes into the history and the theory of witchcraft and magic, which I think is very important. A lot of Witchcraft 101 books don't really go into the history, and if they do, it is not very well researched, but this one is. It is critical. It also talks about people being problematic, which we know we do have a lot of problematic people in the occult community, and some of the very influential occultists of the past have been very problematic. So Ari is very transparent about that. She's not like trying to create an image of witchcraft being this ancient religion that goes like millennia, but it is very rational, very transparent, and just down to earth. In general, this book is very down to earth, and I really like that. There's no fluff. It goes right down to the point. It goes right down to what you need to know, and it does that in a very accessible and down-to-earth manner. I really like that style of writing, because you don't have to read like 10 pages to get to the point. Ari just goes right to the point. I know that from her videos already, that's why I knew I would like this book, so that was great. Also about the theory of magic part, you probably know that I am kind of big about knowing the theory and the background behind what you're doing, because if you don't really know what the background is, how magic works, then how are you supposed to cast spells, right? So I'm big on knowing the theory, but I'm also big on figuring out what is the theory for you. There are different models that you can work by, and there are different theories and just in general different approaches to this. If you ask different practitioners, you will probably get very different answers to questions like, what is magic, what is energy, how does magic work, how do you cast a spell, anything like that. There are a lot of different views on this, and what I really like about this book is it doesn't just spoon feed you Ari's view on what magic is, but it goes into different aspects, like different types of theories about it, and lets you in the end decide for yourself what you believe in. I really like that, because a lot of books are just basically feeding you the author's beliefs, and I don't really think that makes a lot of sense. Someone who's new to witchcraft or any magical practice, in my opinion, has to figure out what they themselves believe in. Otherwise, they will not really be able to cast successful spells, because they're trying to work after a theory or a background or a framework that doesn't work for them. And this book actually gives you an exercise to figure all of that stuff out. Things like, do you work after the energy model, the spirit model? Do you even believe in spirits? Like, what do you believe is energy? What is magic? What is witchcraft? Things like that. There's even an exercise for this in this book, and I think this is so great because it's so insanely important, and a lot of books don't really do that. But I have to say, in general, the approach in this book is kind of like giving you options. It's like giving you the facts and then letting you choose what you want to do, what you want to believe in. And I think that is so cool. Yeah, as I said, a lot of books are just like, okay, this is what it is, period, and kind of feeds you that one theory or that one approach. And that way, if you don't really like that approach, you will have to read another book and another book and another book until you find an approach that works for you. And in this book, this is not the case. You're being given the information, but then you're free to do with it whatever you want. And I really like that. Something else I really like about the book is, in general, it gives you exercises, and all of the exercises are very accessible. Like, Ari took into account that there are different kinds of people with different abilities. The exercises are, in my opinion, accessible to anyone. Even meditation type exercises are very accessible. And there's always an alternative. There is no forcing of visualization or anything. She even clearly states in the book that some people have a hard time visualizing, but that they can instead supplement it with something else, which I think is amazing. So in general, it's just very accessible. It's taken into account that there are different people with different abilities who have a hard time doing some things, and that that's not a bad thing, but that you just have to figure out how to supplement the things that you can't do or that you struggle with things that you are talented at. The only thing that I would have maybe wished that I think is missing a little bit in the book, but something that is actually missing in a lot of books, is like a tiny little chapter about clairsenses and how to figure out, like an exercise on how to figure out which clairsense works best for you. Because in my opinion, as I said in a lot of different videos, for example, I think my How Does Magic Work video, I think my beginner tips video, a lot of different videos, I mentioned that I think one of the first things a beginner should be able to do is figure out which clairsense works for them, because that will be very important when communicating with spirits and doing spell work and stuff. So I would have really liked like a small chapter about that and maybe an exercise about it. But apart from that, like all of the important stuff like grounding, centering, meditation, stuff like that, you have exercises for. Two kind of weirdly specific things that I found great about this book is, one, it gives you kind of prompts on how you can track your spells. So it doesn't just tell you how to cast spells and what you have to keep in mind with your intention and the ingredients and the timing and everything around that, but it also tells you what you do after a spell, like the mundane actions, how to dispose of spell stuff, and how to actually keep track of what your spell did, or if your spell even did anything. And it actually gives you prompts that you can use in your magical journal to kind of keep track of the outcome of the spell, if that makes sense. I kind of feel like a lot of beginners either forget about that to begin with, or struggle with really figuring out how to keep track of their spell successes and failures. So having prompts for that is just great, and I think I've never seen that in any other spellcraft or spellwork book. Also, I already mentioned it, the disposing of spell stuff. That is very important, and a lot of books don't even mention that. They will give you a spell. For example, let's say a spell bottle. They will give you a spell for that, but they won't tell you what to do with the glass, for example, with the jar, or with the herbs, or with the crystals you've used. And since Ari is an ecologist, is that the name? I think that's the name. She is, of course, extremely knowledgeable on how you can and what you can dispose of in nature and what you shouldn't dispose of. So she gives a lot of different tips and tricks on where you can dispose different kinds of materials and why you should not dispose of specific materials in nature, where you can dispose of these things if you can't dispose of them in nature. Like, a lot of people are big on disposing of spells that have come to an end in nature, but a lot of these things are not very environmentally friendly. They can cause harm to the environment and to the ecosystem. So having this kind of information from the start is just great, because that way you don't even have to like do a lot of research outside of this book. Like, I kind of just feel like there's everything really you need in this book when it comes to spellcraft and spellwork. So I feel like the title is very, very accurate. There's actually everything that you need to know. Maybe some things are a little bit simplified because of course there are so many things that go into spellcraft and spellwork. Even just talking about timing can be a whole entire book. So fitting all of that in like 92 pages or something is very, very crazy. So of course some things will be a little bit simplified, but that also means that there is, as I said, no fluff. So I would much prefer a book that has less fluff and maybe simplifies things a little bit than a book that goes into every single thing but then goes into candle spells for like 500 pages before getting into the next type of spell, you know? Also, some things may be simplified, but there are like book recommendations in the back. So a lot of times when things are more simplified, she even mentions like, if you want to know more about that, then I have some recommended reading about it in the back. So you have some recommended reading, you have the bibliography, everything like that. So I think that's great. If you are a beginner and you struggle like specifically with spellcrafting, with spellwork, with how to write spells and how to cast spells, then I would definitely recommend this book. If you want to get into other 101 topics like divination and stuff like that, this is not the book for you, because this literally does what the title says. It's about spellcrafting and spellwork. So if you want to know about that, if you're a beginner, struggle with that, then I definitely recommend this book. It's great. And by the way, maybe I should have mentioned in the beginning of the video, no, this is not sponsored. I'm not getting paid to do this review. I was gifted this book and that's it. Like Ari just sent a copy over for me to read, and I mean, we both know that my reviews are always honest. So if this book was shit, I would not recommend it to you, trust me. With that being said, let us shout out my lovely patrons and YouTube members. Thank you so much to Relson, Lucy, Anna, Maddie, Haley, Mordred, Ajit, Misty Sky, Sleeping Butterfly, Carrie, Eva, Roran, Tanya, Spider, Crow, Margot, Catherine, Roberto, Crimson Platners, Ellie, Petra, Lunafika, Jen, Maria, Katie, Pam, Mia, Victoria, Lindsay, The Other Saffron, Silent Selena, Richard, Jazz, Christiana, Sylvia, Katrina, V, Amanda, Derek, Kirsten, Andrew, Tisha, Sarah, Roan, Caesar, Shelby, Helena, Anne, Kate, Cade, Z, Kent, Brittany, Small Kata, Josh, Elinura, Knarr, Rixie Business, Ashley, Tim, John, Phoenix, Jenny, Amy, Bethany, Timothy, Coffee, or the Honorary Gossip Squirrel, and last but not least, Bjorn. And then, of course, my lovely YouTube members. Thank you so much to The Macabre Tavern, Tracy, Christy Saurus, Runa, Peony Rain, Jan, Pat, Lindsay, Betsy, Miller, and KT. Thank you all so much. I kind of fear I will soon have to like put a scrolling visual on screen instead of me saying all the names, because this is taking a long time because there are so many of you and that makes me very happy. But thank you all so much. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up and ring the bell down below to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Feel free to check out my other socials, and if you want to support me, then check out my Patreon or my YouTube membership. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!